Welcome. Good afternoon and good morning. This is Jim Gerson from CareStack. You're in the right place. This is your 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific CE course today, featuring Victoria Peterson speaking on building an investment grade practice. And Victoria, if it's okay with you, I prefer you to give your own introduction, if that's all right.
Thank you so much, Jim, and I'll keep it brief. I am Victoria Peterson. I'm the co-founder of The Productive Dentist. My partner is Dr. Bruce Baird. And I think what I love most about talking about building an investment grade practice is because I've done that in my own life. I started out dentistry in a clinical setting as a hygienist and then an office manager, and had a robust consulting career before I took the plunge and purchased, you'll love this, 3 dental practices on the same day. I don't recommend that as your first foray into purchasing a dental practice. I built a network in the Midwest of 5 dental practices, leveraging them out for a very high multiple. This was as DSOs were really taking foothold, and I wanted to experience what would it be like for the doctors that we work with at Productive Dentist Academy, not only to spot value on the buying side of a dental practice, but grow value through time and then leverage out so that I could experience as an owner the entire life cycle. It's been my experience that doctors think about value and building value 2 times: when they buy a practice and when they sell a practice. And today we're going to talk about that long middle of where you have opportunity to build value. And I love this quote from Nelson Mandela. It says, "Money won't create success. The freedom to make it will." And we work with a lot of independent doctors who value freedom above everything else. So if you're one of those doctors, you're probably a great fit for Productive Dentist Academy. So let's just jump right in. And I apologize, there's a lot going on in this slide, but the first thing to understand in creating value and understanding value, there's a clear difference between cash flow, which is where most doctors live their life. I've got money in the bank, so I go to a trade show, I buy a shiny new object, then I come back and my bookkeeper says, "I can't believe you spent that money. Did you forget we had payroll coming up?" And then they're on this cash flow roller coaster, and it can be incredibly stressful. I've been there. So number one, you have to figure out where you're at in your business lifestyle. So stage 1, growth phase, maybe you're less than 5 years in practice, your revenues are under $50,000. You're in what I call the race to revenue stage. Getting to 1,200 patients of record, getting to that $1 million practice, that's the game that you're playing. And you'll do it at any cost. You'll sign up for every PPO plan. You know, it's like in college, you eat a lot of top ramen. So these are the lean years. This is when it's fun. The adrenaline is flowing, everything's great. Stage 2 is developing. Now that I'm above water, I'm above my break even, I can breathe a little bit, I can take a day off. I'm going to start refining my systems. I'm going to look at my software a little differently. I'm going to look at cost savings. I'm going to look at pulling more money to the bottom line. And we'll talk about why that's important to value in just a moment. But that's stage 2. And stage 2 for most dentists can last from 15 to 25 years. No, this is the long road in the middle, is this stage 2. And then stage 3 is planning your exit. Really savvy dentists start planning their exit 5 to 10 years in advance to maximize value. Some wait, 2 years out, and they're trying to hustle to build value. The American Dental Association tells us that 95% of dentists cannot retire and maintain their lifestyle. And we're going to talk about why that's true. But first, Jim, can we poll and see where everybody's sitting today?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that transition. So I've launched a poll, and I want to let everyone know out there that this is anonymous, right? And so I'm going to stop making, I won't make any political jokes. I know we're out of the election season, but this is anonymous, but this will help guide the conversation and discussion. It's really valuable for Victoria that we get really high participation in this poll, and we get a sense of where our audience falls into one of these 3 stages. So Victoria, the polls are open. I'll let them kind of remain maybe for another minute or so. And then if it's okay with you, I'll interrupt you and just tell you what the results look like.
Okay, that sounds great. as you can see in the slide, your peak value comes for most dental practices somewhere in this mid-development stage. And I would say for a solo doctor, you're probably doing 1.5 million, somewhere between a million, $1.5 million. Your take-home pay could be between 200 and 500,000 a year. Life is good. Life is really good. You're out of the cash flow roller coaster. Sometimes in this stage, you get into challenges of abundance. I have 3,000 patients of record and only 2 hygienists. I can't get everybody in. We're seeing a lot of that with COVID. And you're really in this lifestyle stage where life seems like it will always be good. But then something happens and the spouse says, why can't we take a little more time off? And so you start taking the time off and income decreases, but that's okay. You were making 300 grand, now you make 250. It's still fine. I've planned for my retirement, life is good. What happens to your practice though, is you start on this downhill slide and you will probably leverage out, even if you're being very savvy, at something lower than what your peak value could have been. Now, through investment grade practice technologies that we implement with our practices, we help you keep that value high. Now, for some doctors, the first step is understanding the equation of productivity. What is my profitability incentive point? When can I pull back and bring in an associate? Do I bring them in full-time, part-time? Could I reorganize my hygiene department? Could I reorganize my non-BRR revenue, things I could delegate to auxiliaries, so that even if I'm out of the office, depending on the State Practice Act, my revenues stay high. And that's what I call building value beyond yourself. So we have many, many ways of getting creative with doctors to build value beyond yourself so that at any point in time that you sell, the value is high. Jim, I see that you've stopped the poll.
I have. And so here are our results. And we have the greatest polling system possible at Zoom. So 50% of the audience, nearly 50%, a little over 50% are categorized as early stage, Victoria. And then, so that's interesting to know. A lot of early stage attendees today. And then about 30% are in mid stage. And then a smaller 20% are planning my exit.
I love that. And you know what, this runs really in tandem with the way that we work with our clients. So early stage doctors know that there is hope. I've been in that race to revenue. I know how confusing it can be. There's so many decisions. And at the end, I will share with you an opportunity to come into one of our investment grade practice classes. It's online, it's virtual, it's very convenient when you're in that crunch stage. So we'll talk about some resources for you. Thank you for the poll, Jim. All right, so the reason understanding value is so important, I'm talking about this typical idyllic scenario of I come in, I live my life, the economy stays stable, my community stays stable, my health stays stable. But what happens if those things don't stay true? What happens if you get a gallstone attack and you're out for 6 weeks? What happens if your partner passes away or something happens and you've got to suddenly sell the practice? This conversation becomes even more important. So one of the questions that I get a lot, or I really try to steer my doctors towards, is how can we build financial freedom in 5 years or less? That's one of the games that you get to play when you're building value, when you're building an investment grade practice, is how can I build freedom, financial freedom in 5 years or less, so I'm not chained to my chair? The other question that we get a lot is, can I really get out of debt and love my job? Or am I going to be, in a churn and burn mill doing composite fillings for the rest of my life? Like, how do I really elevate my income to get out of debt? And those are the things that we really work on at Productive Dentist Academy. So let's jump in. Let me give you some of the things that I have learned along the way. I'm not going to say that I am an expert, but I will say that I've been an entrepreneur for more than 30 years. I love it. I've got the scars to prove it. And the first thing I've noticed is that if I ever get the 4 P's of investment grade practice in the wrong order, my business doesn't work. So number one is the people. We use the word investment because it is a journey. It is a love of people. It's a love of investing in yourself, your own learning, investing in your people and their learning. A good friend of ours and a client, Dr. Cheryl Brunell, she takes her team to everything. And her friends were saying, why do you invest so much in your team? What if they leave? What if you spend all that money and they leave? And she said, I get it. And what if I don't spend the money and they stay? I think that's probably the better equation. Profit, the value of your business when you go to sell, it's all about EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, depreciation, amortization. It's one of the things I spend a lot of time on when I'm teaching young doctors about business leadership and building a strong foundation. Next comes your purpose. Why am I here? What's my philosophy of care? What do I believe in? Because at the end of the day, that's what sticks in your soul. That's what you go home and you dream about when you know you've done your best work. There's such a sense of pride. When you know you've compromised your purpose, then nothing else really matters and you're on that track of burnout. And then how can I be passionate? Some of our doctors are very artistic. They love cosmetics. Some are very technical. They love implants. What's your passion? And how do we bring more of your passion in the services, sleep apnea, airway issues, things like that, into your service mix? So there are 3 key elements to getting this done. We sum it up as lead, empower, and attract. And there's a lot to unpack in this. I'm really happy to have the hour. This can take a lifetime, but let's dive right in. Leading in today's world with this generation of teammates, it really requires a decentralized authoritative system. So gone is the hierarchy of I say, you do, let me micromanage everything you do. You can do it, but I have found that it is exhausting and ineffective and productivity goes down. So decentralizing authority means that each person has authority in their role to make whatever decisions they need to make in the moment to do their job, as long as they're not breaking a core value or some rule of the company. So if it's ethical, it's legal, it's within the bounds of the rules of the team, then I have authority to execute as a patient advocate, as a financial coordinator, as a scheduler. As long as I'm following the rules set by the team, I have authority. This is what creates leadership. And this is how we help doctors shift from micromanaging employees to leading leaders. There's a very specific process that we do. The other piece is leading yourself and leading well. And it requires standing in your own authority. So what I mean by that is we have an internet, right? We have a system of intelligence and communication between our head, our heart, our gut. How do we tap into that intuition? Because there's a lot more that's available to us than just our academic learning. A lot of times we're out on the internet looking out here for all the answers and, well, what did you do? And I'll do that. And so said to do this, and they're an expert, it must work. I can tell you that in consulting with over 3,000 doctors in the last 20 years of my career, no 2 practices are the same. So while the systems may be very similar, the structure, some of the benchmarks are the same, they will be executed different, and it's your own inner authority that helps you decide where am I going? How do I lead my team? And this is going to be a bold statement, but if all you expect from your business is money, I'm going to recommend you keep your day job. You will gain a lot of value. It is probably the best path of wealth for dentists. If you have $400,000 in debt that you're staring down, entrepreneurship is the way to really eliminate that mountain and get security and get financial freedom. But if you're not willing to come in and put in the emotional effort, put yourself out there, if you're not willing to be twisted and turned by the incredible adventure of entrepreneurism, it's probably better to keep your day job, negotiate well, get a great salary, and go surfing every afternoon, because it does require a lot in your leadership. And here's the fun part. Leadership is about decisions. It's about building relationships. Where I got really exhausted and burnt out was when I tried to dip below it into the daily task of the systems and the management of that. That's why I love helping you train leaders to lead those daily tasks and manage it so that you can stay above the line looking into the future for decisions and relationships.
Hey, Victoria, if I can just interrupt for 1 second, we're having some questions come in, which is great.
Yeah.
And we want questions to come in. So please, I want to, as we go along here, please pose your questions, but I think it makes most sense that we're going to put them in a parking lot and make sure that we allocate 10 minutes at the conclusion of the program, just for our audience that joined us.
Thank you so much for Jim. Is there a question now or we want to wait till the end?
No, I think it's more appropriate to bring it up at the end. Let's keep going. You're doing great.
Sounds great. Thank you. And I hope this is making sense. For me, business is personal. And if anything that's going to be personal, it's going to be fun. That's one of my #1 core values. How do I make this fun? So my encouragement to you is in your annual planning, and you don't have to wait till the end of the year. Stop right now, pull out your calendar and say, where am I baking fun? Where am I baking renewal, refreshment, things in my personal life? Put that first, and then build your business around it. We've helped doctors go from $400 an hour to $1,200 an hour. You can go from working 4 days a week to 2 days a week and net more than you were in your 4 days. That's what productivity is all about. So make it personal, make it fun, dream big. I often find that doctors are not dreaming big enough. You know, my dream is to get out of my student debt. My dream is to pay off my practice. My dream is to make a certain income. Man, there's just so much more to it than that. You know, dream about your freedom. Dream about what freedom really means to you. Does it mean taking Wednesdays off so you can take your kids to soccer? Does it mean having enough reserve so that the next time the economy goes down or perhaps COVID shuts us down, you've got that financial security that you need? Freedom means different things to different people, and you get there by dreaming bigger. All right, step 2 in this process is really empowering the team. So knowing how you bring value. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be the most productive dentist I can be. My diagnostics are locked in. My clinical skills are locked in. But how do I empower my team? That's where the magic is. My partner, Bruce Baird, says knowing where you're going is great. Engaging the team shortens the time to get there. So let's talk about the behaviors that impact your practice value. Number 1 is cost savings. On every line item on your P&L, how can you balance that within the budget? And then how do you play the game of making it even, saving even more money? This brings more money to the bottom line. If you've read The Great Game of Business, you understand its revenues are great, but what I keep is what is important. What your business is valued on is EBITDA. So bringing more money through cost savings is the critical first step. So if you notice that your dental assistant's putting a stack of 22 gauze on the tray, you're going to want to measure that and say, you know, we really only use 3. Let's use 3. If your room is set up in a way that you have to come in and out of the operatory and you're switching out gloves, which can be in short supply, it's very wasteful behaviors like this that will leak money out of the practice. And that is something that you can do today to start building a more value in your practice. Number 2 is your productive systems. Everything that goes into revenue cycle management, you know, from our financial arrangements, how we collect money, monitoring our write-offs with our insurance companies, negotiating better fees, all of that is part of a productive system. How we attract patients, how we retain patients once we're in the system. All of those productive systems, tapping like this, makes your practice very attractive to the next buyer. So for our doctors who are on the exiting scale, you know, perk up. You know, get your team in a cost savings modality, get them in a referral modality. Fred Joyle, many years ago from 1-800 Dentists, said that patients, if they're extremely happy with you, they will refer 1 patient every 10 years. And I found that to be mind-blowing because it seems like all of our patients come from referral. The reality is it's only about 10% of your patient base at a time. So what could you do to get that number up to 20%? You know, you could double the impact without doubling your marketing budget. So these are the types of behaviors you want to think about as you're building value. And I think the third one, which is oftentimes been part of a soft skill, but I think it's the number one critical skill for leaders, is developing cultural behaviors around your core values. So if your core values are trust, how does trust show up within the team? If they're respect, how do we demonstrate respect for each other and for our patients? When respect is there, you don't hear things like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that patient's on the schedule today. What a pain in the butt. You know, you just don't have those conversations. You have empowering conversations. So get clear on your core values and help hold your team accountable to those values. People lead, numbers lag. So when you're looking at your KPIs, when you're looking at the dashboards, everything that's there should be celebrated as a success and looked at into where down the line did we miss a step. You know, I really don't think there are defects in people. I think there's defects in systems. And if we take the time to look at the numbers and say, what is the story they're telling and how do we back this down the line to see where we may have had a misstep, it really creates an incredible culture. And for me, that's what an investment grade practice is. It's a practice I'd love to be at today. You know, stress is the number one killer of productivity. So let's make this fun. Let's make de-stress the environment, and our productivity almost automatically goes up. Here's a great one for you, leaders. How do you handle failure? Leaders today require two skills. They're very new skills. One is storytelling, and the other one is the art of listening. So what story do you tell when someone makes a mistake? Is it like, I can't believe this? You know, that's your first strike, 2 more strikes and you're out. You know, what's your story around failure? Or as Dr. Baird says, anything that stresses me as a doctor, my team, or my patients is an opportunity. We call them training opportunities. So any failure in our system, anything that stresses us out, we call that a training opportunity. And it goes on an agenda and we talk about it as a team. Here's what happened. It didn't work. What can we do differently in the future? This fosters a culture of innovation. So I would say if you take nothing else away today in terms of leadership and team engagement, please go back and ask your team, how do we handle failure as a team? What story are we telling about our core values? You know, how does all of that align? And the second piece, doctors, and this was so hard, it's active listening, you know, with compassion, particularly now that we've gone through COVID. You know, people are on high alert, their fight or flight, their emotional state. That's why you're seeing so many courses on emotional intelligence right now. Can I pause and genuinely be interested in you? If you can do that with your patients, your case acceptance will be nearly 100%. So these are the 2 leadership skills that have to be developed. I have to tell a better story, and I have to be able to listen through my heart with compassion to what you're sharing with me as a patient and as a team member. Is this making sense, Jim?
It totally is. I think the challenge, Victoria, is whenever you're presenting to a black box, right? You've got a great audience out there and we're getting things coming in, but it's hard, right? Because you can't read the room. But I think it's resonating with me. And
That's fantastic.
Scott in his beautiful, but fictitious backdrop there, he looks like he's pleased.
I'm very pleased.
Well, I tell you what, everybody, if you're in Zoom land, this will make me feel good. You can put your hands in the air and stretch out and get a little energy in your body, because we're about to talk about marketing, and that's the most fun part.
Yeah, please go for it. Yeah, we're tracking great.
Yeah, the most fun part of building an investment grade practice is that it becomes natural. It becomes like, it's so authentic to who you are, and then people become naturally attracted to it. I gained it. My first degree was in dental hygiene. My second degree was in marketing and business and finance. My third degree was a doctorate in spiritual studies. So I love combining the human element with the business framework. And I got to tell you, Consumers today, they can sniff out a fraud from 1,000 miles away. Now, they may come to you because they're on the PPO plan, but they won't stay with you. And putting out some fake, phony, stock image, gross direct mailer, and direct mailers do work, by the way. In fact, they're working now more than ever in combination with digital technology. So layering that works really well, but it works because you're telling a story. It works because you're being authentic. It works because you understand your philosophy of care. It works because you're congruent in what I say to the marketplace and what I deliver in my practice. That's the foundation, is getting those two things correct. So authenticity isn't something you manufacture for social media. You know, there's not going to be very many dancing dentists that go viral and have, 2 million YouTube subscribers. I love him and it's great. Most dentists and their teams are quite shy, and social media can feel really daunting. Video can feel really daunting. And so you do what the marketers tell you, and you're putting out this stuff, or you're having an agency manufacture social media things for you. And that's good. It's good for SEO. It gets you out there. We do that. But at some point, we want our clients to start getting engaged, and we teach you, here's how you can make a simple video. Let's start with 30 seconds. Now we're going to go a minute, probably never go more than 2 minutes. You can do this. Show me the county fair. Show me your kids at a soccer game. Show me how you can run your truck over that zirconium crown and it won't break. Show me some goofy stuff. Just be yourself. So if you're quiet and you're shy, that's okay. Be that. If you're really bold, you love fishing, whatever, be yourself. So discover your best self and then connect it with the community. What's happening in my community today? What can I find in common? How do I connect those dots? Reagan Robertson's our president and CMO. I think she's one of the most fantastic dental marketers in the nation. And she has a whole entire class on authentic marketing that can help you with that. Because it's no longer about selling stuff. It's no longer about your website saying, I do implants, I do this, I do that. We list those for SEO, but you really want to tell the story. If you've been missing teeth, we understand. Sometimes when you're missing teeth, it can be embarrassing. In fact, my grandmother was so embarrassed by her smile that she started talking like this. And then we noticed that she stopped coming to the family reunions. And then she started becoming depressed. And when we discovered that she was embarrassed by her smile, we took her to the dentist. She had her dental work complete, and suddenly my grandmother was back. This is a true story.
That's a great anecdote to share. Thank you. Yeah.
So learn to tell the stories. That's what your patients connect with. It all begins with your philosophy of care. So do you believe that your patients should be healthy? A lot of our doctors are really connecting oral systemic health, full body health. In COVID, in this time, you could be the doctor that could publish a whole series of blogs and white papers and offers that say, did you know that good oral health can boost your immune system? Did you know that the healthier your mouth, the more resistant you are to viruses? That's newsworthy. So if it's part of your philosophy of care to help patients obtain health beyond their mouth, you're newsworthy. It's notable. You could be on the 6 o'clock news. If you are really into sleep apnea, for example, and you're passionate about airway issues and the connections with ADD and children and all of that, that philosophy of care is very noteworthy, and your community wants to know, and they deserve to know. In the class that we teach, Business Impact Foundations, this is module 1. What is my philosophy of care? Who am I serving, and why? And it's a question that doctors don't often ask. They're like, well, I do implants. Yeah, but who are you serving? Who needs implants? Why do they need them? What's the reason behind it? All right. And then, like I said, just connecting with the stories. There's so much more I could say about this, Jim, but I thought maybe we'll open it up for questions first, because again, I love marketing and I'm an extrovert, so I will go deep without direction.
Or do you want to pause here and do questions, or you want to wait till like what do you prefer to go now? Is that okay?
Yeah, I say
Okay, great.
yeah, let's just go now. It's a great time.
Okay, so first off, I've got several here I want to go through, but this is not the time to sit in your hands. So Victoria, how many are there other slides you want to show? I just want to make sure I
No,
manage.
you know what? We've got a generous time for Q&A.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think the first place to start is a question that came in from the audience, and this might not be, a little bit disjointed from your most recent slide, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But someone came up with the example, practice, say I'm carrying a ton of debt right now. I can't see how to get out of this in 5 years, like you talked about. Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. So let's go back to that. I'll tell you, one of our favorite resources is Dentist Advisors. So I would say sign up for their podcast and really start listening to Ryan. They just do a great job. Here's the steps for getting out of debt. Number one, have the courage to put it all on one spreadsheet and take a look at it. I mean, your practice debt, your equipment debt, your student loans, your personal credit cards, your car, your mortgage, everything. And Bruce and I have been running the same productivity workshop. And when we do the doctor breakout on business ownership and overhead, we look at your P&Ls with you. We ask this question: how many of you have a P&L? Your CPA gives you a profit and loss statement. All the hands in the room go up. How many of you look at them every month? About half the hands go down. Of those that are remaining, how many of you have budget versus actual? All the hands go down. So it really is critical to set up your financial documents in a way that they are a management tool for you. So here's a practical step one. Look at your P&L this weekend. If it is organized A to Z, you do not have a management document. You have a standard template out of QuickBooks. You have a CPA that's setting it up for tax purposes. So I love CPAs. I almost majored in accounting, so I love CPAs. Here's the statistic though: if only 5% of dentists can retire and maintain their lifestyle, only 6% of CPAs can retire and maintain their lifestyle. So make sure that the financial tools you're given, they work for you. Number two, make sure that you access that by the 5th of each month. A lot of times your CPA is giving you these reports a month later, 3 months later, and you're waiting. That's just driving with the rearview mirror. Can't do that.
Right.
So number one is you've got to organize yourself financially first. Understand, what are my assets? What are my liabilities? We call that a balance sheet. Have the courage to have a great conversation with your CPA and say, can we organize my P&L so that it's readable? If you don't have that courage, call me. I'll give you a contact. I'll talk to your CPA with you. I'll explain all of this. The second thing we do, Jim, is we help you establish your profitability incentive point. Because if you're going to get out of debt, you must throw off more profit in your practice. And so a lot of times we'll set bonus plans or our break-even point. If you're looking just at your P&L, you will not know your break-even point for the business. You have to go into your personal life. You have to go, because a lot of times a business debt can be carried on personal credit cards. They can be carried on home equity lines of credit. They can be carried outside the company. And we need to align those things to really understand, what is it going to take to get me out of debt? Number two, what is it going to take to get me to retirement and financial freedom? Now we can set a budget for the practice. And from that budget, we can set our productivity goals. I would say that Bruce and I have found that 9 out of 10 times doctors' goals are too low. And there's a fear of raising that goal because we don't know how to engage the team. We don't know how to communicate it to the team, and we don't know how to communicate comprehensive care to the patient. So we get afraid of the number. So I hope that this question helps doctors understand that first, education will help you decrease your fear. And once you have the courage to actually look at the full picture, we can help you build a roadmap for getting out.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that. The next question I have for you, and then I have a couple marketing related questions.
Okay.
And I'm glad they're coming in. I want to encourage more people to ask questions so I don't see the same names over and over. But one person talks about, everything seems like a top priority to me, and I'm struggling. Any advice on knowing what to let go so I can focus on the business?
Whew. Yeah, that's a big one. You know that you need to create priority when you're at the end of your day and your day's not over. And when you're at the end of the week and you're still dragging it into the weekend. One of our clients, her wife, after coming to, we have a class called Driving the Bus, which is like who's driving your business. It came about the time that the energy bus came out and who's on your bus, who's off your bus. And really it comes down to organizing. And then priority is, Bruce always says there's only two goals in my practice. Number one, that I make my daily goal. And number two, I take incredible care of my patients. And that's all he focuses on his, when I'm in my mindset of clinician, did we make our goal? Did we make our patients happy? Everything else beyond that should have a timeline to it, right? Here's a project. This project is going to be delegated to this person. It should take them a week, 2 weeks, a month. We have our check-ins. So I think managing by timeline, and we have some ways of doing that, really takes the pressure off the urgency. I also recently did a podcast. I can give everybody a link to the Investment Grade Practice podcast.
Yeah, if you want to put it in the chat,
Yeah.
that'd be great. And while you do that, not to multitask. I mean, I can't multitask. My wife reminds me that all the time.
I'm not sure I can multitask.
Well, I'm sure you can. But I think a little bit of a profile on Dr. Bruce, if that's okay, because I don't know if everyone's familiar with his background. If you wouldn't mind sharing just his professional profile a little bit, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. So Dr. Baird is the productive dentist. We started out together in 2004 and really looking at how do I schedule to productivity? That was the first thing we taught doctors. So Bruce is an icon. He's a legend in the field. He's a diplomat in the ICOI. He's just clinically astute. In terms of productivity, we watched him go from 800 an hour to over 4,000 an hour with integrity. And he also founded Comprehensive Finance because what he found was his patients wanted to say yes, and either traditional bank lending didn't go high enough to afford that, or their credit scores could have been impacted. This came out during the last housing crash and the depression. The patients were very payment worthy, but they may not have been credit worthy. So his patients were having a hard time making payments, and accounts receivable is a load on the practice. It's not an asset, it's a liability. So he founded a company called Compassionate Finance that helped doctors to extend truth in lending statements to their patients with integrity that had collectability behind it and the whole software and process that goes with that. They also created Abella, which is a financial platform that helps you collect your AR and your outstanding receivables that way. So I have enjoyed being Bruce's partner. He's a pioneer.
He's an entrepreneur for sure, a dental entrepreneur, right?
You're with him right now at Dykema. What's he up to?
I don't want to say anything that, I've seen, he's very visible. He's everywhere. So it's good.
Yeah.
Do we have a couple I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, please.
Well, I just say he brings the real world doctor perspective. You know,
Yes.
He's been in almost every dental business format there is. He's been solo, he's been specialized. He was a journeyman in implants. He worked within a DSO. You know, he's done it all.
Our next round of questions are kind of more specific to the marketing component. Can I put those out there for you?
Sure.
So this is a great one. And we hear this all the time in our field, but how can I know that my marketing is working and that it's producing for my practice?
Ooh, good one. There's two ways to measure marketing effectiveness. Sometimes you will hear marketing companies brag about click-through rates or impressions or things like that. So we'll get you X number of leads per month. That's one way of measuring it. The other one, or they'll use an ROI, which is return on investment. But the ROI metric, this is what you want to pay attention to, could be on a hypothetical number. So sometimes marketing agencies will say, what's your average initial spend, or what's your average patient value? Or they'll give you an average patient value of $2,000 or $3,000 or $800. And they'll say, well, we sent you 100 patients at $2,000. So your value for that is 200,000, and you spent, 5,000 with us. So your ROI is this. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not necessarily reality. The way that we track is the full cycle. What is my productivity? What was my collections with that new patient? And how do I cycle that back to what I spend? So we look at marketing spend versus collections, and we take it both short-term and long-term. We have an automated process for that. We also can look at what are the levers to pull in order to increase the value. So sometimes you'll have 100 new patients a month. Likely the only time you need 100 new patients a month is when you're in that race to revenue piece, that stage 1 growth. And I need to get to 1,200 as quickly as possible. Another time you might need that value is if you're in the development stage and you want to ramp up that new cycle, right? You're bringing on an associate and you want to ramp them up. So there are times when volume are more important, but for 8 out of 10 doctors that we work with in that stage 2, long development, practice development, and niching segment, they're really looking at what we call bread, butter, and caviar. How do I keep my general practice patients coming in, keep the flow going, and start niching into sleep apnea, start niching into more implants, start doing more cosmetic cases, start providing same-day smiles with CIRAC, things like that. So it is a layering effect, and all of those things work together. There's internal marketing, how many patients are going out the door? Are we capturing those? What's our reactivation program? There's reputation, ROI. What does my 5-star review and my referrals look like? There's community connection. How visible am I? What's my reputation, both on and offline? We can measure that. There's team and patient satisfaction. There's so many measures, but the financial one really should come from what did I spend and what did I collect, and measuring that out today, 3 months, 6 months, a lifetime value. Great questions, Jim.
Yeah. There's some really good insight here, or input. We're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about productivity on this next question.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about someone posed that their book's so far out, especially focused on hygiene, right? You talked about your background in hygiene too, but my practice isn't as productive as I want it to be. What can I do?
Yeah. You know what? There's really a big difference between being busy and being productive. And I believe that all of our patients deserve equal respect. Everyone deserves equal respect, but they don't deserve equal time. And we get into this place where it's a 1-hour block, fill the 1-hour block, regardless of if it's a healthy patient or a difficult patient. And you start stressing your hygiene team out like that. There's also a work shortage right now. A lot of hygienists left the field. Assistants are leaving the field. We're calling in new. So there's this squeeze of training and things like that. So I totally understand that. To really get a handle on this, it comes down to your practice template. I've never seen a perfect day. Some of the softwares will say perfect day and you've got the X's and the slashes. And if everything worked out perfect, this would work.
Right. Well put.
We have a different way of thinking, which is predict productivity per hour, not just per day, but per hour. So let's take the scenario of I want to produce $500 an hour. National average is about 400. So let's say we're going to go a little above 500 an hour. The typical dentist would give themselves an hour to do that crown. But if my crown fee is $1,000, then I've just produced $1,000 in that hour, right? Now I have, the rest of the day to fill, and it may or may not be filled, so we fill it in with junk. What we do is we say, if your goal is 500 an hour and your procedure is $1,000, you get 2 hours, which is so counterintuitive to most dentists, right? It's like,
right.
Why would I give myself that much time? Because if I time block in this way to my goal, my diagnostic ratio slows down. Everything in the practice slows down. If I were to keep it at $1,000 an hour and I pressured myself to do that crown perfectly every time in that 1 hour, I now need to find 8 patients at $1,000 an hour, right?
Right.
If I have it based on, I think you get where I'm going with this, right? If my goal is 500 an hour, I can have 4 instead of filling that time for 8. That's why I have $8,000 days and $2,000 days, and $8,000 days and $2,000 a day. You can never make up that $2,000 a day. It seems like you are, but you don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really comes down to your template. I don't know. Do you know Maggie Augustine?
I don't know.
She's a fabulous doctor. She's really big on dental nachos, and
Okay.
she's been publishing quite a bit lately. But she was on an HMO, which is, downgraded from PPO, and she was really blowing and going. And she said she would just go into the operatory, mask on, and say, "You need a crown. Do you want it or not?" And they'd say no, and she'd say, "Great, next." Not building relationship, And she was working so hard. She was making great money, but I said, we want you to, she heard about this and she said, "I want to try it. I don't think it'll work in my office. It's not going to work, but let's try it." So we taught her our method of sitting down, gaining rapport, active listening. "Hey, Jim, I see you're living on the east side of Chicago. What brought you here?" "Oh my goodness, my cousin lives there." Linking, getting to know people. And she's like, "I don't have time for this." And we're like, "Just try it." She did it. And within a month, she reorganized her schedule. She went from 485 an hour to 900 an hour in 30 days because we slowed down, created a relationship, and retemplated the schedule. Now she's got choice. Do I stay on the HMOs? Do I upgrade to PPOs? Do I start thinking about a fee for service track? So she has gone in 4 months from drowning, and over busyness to I've got freedom of choice about how I provide my dentistry and who I choose to work with.
Thank you. I think we have probably time for 2 more questions, Victoria. And then if you could do me a favor, do you mind putting up your slide with your contact information?
You bet.
Yeah, we're going to run out of time.
Okay.
Is that the best way for people to reach you is through your website?
Yeah, so I've got 2 gifts for everyone right now. If you're interested in knowing where you're at in the investment grade practice journey, on the lead, empower, and attract, where your strengths are, where you may have some opportunity, go to productivedentist.com. It'll pop up and you can take the IGP assessment and get your score right then and there. It'll also provide you with a contact if you want to get on the calendar and speak with one of my success coaches. You can do that. Also, gosh, this date is wrong. My next business impact class is going to be September 24th. So if you're on Productive Dentist and you look at for foundations, that class will get you into our next virtual class. And
you want to put something up in the chat feature, by the way? I know you mentioned you were going to do that and I interrupted you.
Okay.
This is great. So if you leave this up, this is a good way to get a hold of Victoria. And then we'll take 2 more questions here and we'll be mindful of the time. You're not going to be held hostage. Okay. You're not going to have to go on Scott's tour, the timeshare in Cancun, where maybe you get swim the dolphins at the end, or maybe not. Right, Scott? Scott's tuned me out. He's like, enough of this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. I love it. So let's talk about staff turnover. There's a question on this, and it's kind of its own category. So staff turnover has hit my existing team hard. How can I empower the ones that are with me so they don't leave as well?
Oh, that's a big one. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it really does come down to listening. Listening to the team, hearing what their struggles are, seeing what you can do to accommodate. There's a lot of homeschooling that's going on right now. Can we job share? Can we stagger hours? There's some accommodations that are being made right now that kind of break some of the traditional rules of, hey, you want this job, you've got this job, blah, 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 blah. And quite frankly, being a hard ass, it's not working right now. So getting clear on your core values and living those, helping your team understand what you stand for. People today, particularly millennials, they're calling BS on I work for you in exchange for $1. They're really looking at what's the significance of this? How does this lend itself to my own life and how I want to live? So as doctors are looking to create lifestyle for themselves, I'd invite you and encourage you to not leave your team out of that conversation. Help them through bonus plans, through profit sharing, through 401ks, also through more generous vacation benefits or PTO, earned time off as a team. Those are some of the things that are really hitting home for teams right now is I'm being heard, I have autonomy in my role, there's respect, it's a low stress environment, even though some days are hectic. It really helped them see that it's a career path and not a dead-end job. I think that's what employees today are really craving.
And that's great. Thank you for mentioning that. So this is the last question. You kind of finished your presentation talking about the authentic story and being your authentic self. And so let's revisit that with this question. So what is the best way to develop and share my authentic story to attract patients to my practice?
Let me see if I can give you a shortcut. Everyone write this down. Anybody can be a blank, but not everyone can be a blank. And I'll leave you with that fun little exercise. Anyone can be a dentist. Not everyone can be a blank, preventive health provider, rock star, same-day service, whatever that is. So anyone could be a dentist, not everyone could be this. Anyone could have a dental practice, not everyone could serve you like this. So think about anybody could be a blank, not everyone could be a blank. And we did this with our team, and then we made, like those foam core boards, and our graphic designers really did a great job. And they did one for me that said, anyone could be a leader, but not everyone can lead with heart. So I think
great
that's
marketing pearl, definitely.
Yeah, quick, simple, easy way to kind of cut through to what's my authentic nature.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that. I mean, I know what's going to happen here. We're at 57 minutes after the hour. If I don't bring this into a close, people are going to show up on my doorstep asking for the CE code.
Yes.
So Victoria, anything in closing, and then I'm going to provide the code for our audience.
First of all, it has been a pleasure being here with you. I'm a huge fan of CareStack. I'm a huge fan of Darby. They do the two things that I think are foundational to building an investment grade practice. They give you systems that are streamlined and easy to operate, and they help you save money. So I'm big fans. I thank you for allowing me to be here. We are engaging our live events again. So Bruce and I are excited to be in Dallas in September. So I really encourage everybody to come to productivedentist.com. If you've been missing our live events, they're coming back online, and our virtual programming is more robust than ever.
Yeah, thank you for speaking. I definitely want to encourage people that follow up with Victoria on the contact information she's provided there in the slide. So thank you for doing that. If you want to learn more about the upcoming courses that CareStack is going to be featuring, please click on this link in the chat feature here. Join our group. That's where we post about our upcoming courses. It's not, Victoria, we're big believers at CareStack and Darby. We don't want to be the guys who email you every other day, right? And fill up your inbox. It becomes overwhelming. So the group is opt-in, right? You see the information when you want to see it. You're not getting bombarded from us by email. So that's where you're going to hear about our every third Thursday CE course, and where you'll have to register for those programs. So thank you.